Hello, welcome back to another Pushing Film live stream. Today I'm going to talk about a film that I tried recently called F64D. This is a cinema film from Fujifilm. It's a long expired one that I hadn't even really heard of or known much about, at least until trying it recently. So that's the idea with this video today, because I shot a roll from the for the first time. It was through Mr. Negative, who repackages old cinema films and sells them, based here in Melbourne. I thought, yeah, maybe you guys would be interested in seeing some of the samples from this film and finding out a little bit more. But if you haven't done one of these live streams before, the format usually is I'll just hang back for a little bit, warm up, wait for some of the live audience to join, and then we'll go through some of the photos, talk about the background of this film, and then maybe just end the live stream with a bit of casual chat, Q&A, catch up kind of thing. They usually go for 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah, usually about half an hour. So if you just want to skip to the part where I show the photos, feel free, if you're watching this later and not live, to just skip down to, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes into the video. But if you are here live, thanks for joining. Let me know where you're watching from. I know it's a tricky thing with the time zones, but it's 11 a.m. here in Melbourne. And, if you're in the US, for example, I think it's, I don't know, depending which part, it's in the evening, basically 6 to 9 p.m. And it's tricky for my European viewers because I know that it's probably the middle of the night for most countries. But yeah, let me know if it's all working all right, where you're watching from, if you've heard of this film, maybe, if you've shot it, if you've been curious, if you've shot any of the other Fuji cinema films, because I know they're not as common as, say, the Kodak Vision motion picture films, because those are still used and in production, whereas Fuji stopped making Eterna and all of their cinema line quite a while ago. That was just the cat in the background. It's not a ghost, don't worry. All right, we've got some chats. Hey Jordan, how's it going, man? Watching from Hawaii, 3 o'clock, cool. And Creative Fun from Sydney, thanks for joining. All right, so let's jump into a few of the samples that I was going to show you. What I did is I'll probably just share the whole roll that I shot. Now, if you're not familiar, I was traveling recently and I was in a few countries, and I was in Japan for a couple of weeks, and that's where I shot this roll of 64D. I had a video on the channel recently where I shared some of the shots from this roll, but in this live stream I'll share more, because the Japan video just related to night photography, whereas I shot this film throughout the day and night. So these images that you're seeing here are probably some of my favorites from the roll, but then at some point I will just show you, everything that I shot and talk about some of my findings about exposure and whatnot. But yeah, if you're not too familiar with this film, it's hard to find out too much about it, because I think the last time it was made was, at least 10, 15 years ago or something like that. But yeah, low speed motion picture film, I don't know how commonly used it was, because I know that films like Kodak Vision's 50D isn't as common when you look at, shot on what, or, whatever movie was shot on. They usually go for 500T or, 250D or something like that for versatility. Whereas, lower speed films can be great if you want that fine detail, low grain kind of result. But yeah, let's show you, for example, when you do look it up, you'll probably find images like this where it's just the big canisters. They come in these big reels. I think it's is it 400 feet, if I'm remembering right. But yeah, big movie reels where people who do shoot it in stills usually cut it down and bulk load it into these little canisters for shooting on stills. So it does still have a remjet layer on it. If you're not familiar with that, remjet layer is an anti-halation layer that reduces the chance of halation on the images. So when you're processing this film, you ideally want to get it done somewhere where they are experienced in removing the remjet layer, and then they can process it in either ECN2 or C41 chemicals. It doesn't matter too much. You will get usually a flatter image with ECN2, But the more important thing is that you remove that remjet layer and not just drop it off at a normal lab, because their machines can't do that. And it might mess up their chemistry if they're not aware. So yeah, not much information on it, but I thought I would give it a try because I was chatting to Gareth from Mr. Negative, who, like I said, supplies a lot of these films, and we had a nice chat, and I told him I was going to Japan, and he said, I'll send you some films just to try and let me know what you think, and in exchange I can share some of the samples, and you can, if you show it in a YouTube video, that's cool. But there was no like, you know, paid agreement or anything like that, so I was just keen on trying a new and interesting film. And I'd only recently heard of his business, so I actually got a bunch of films from him. You might have seen in previous videos, he had the Kodak Vision films as well, the Eterna 250 tungsten, some other stuff. But yeah, this one, F64D, was probably one of the ones I was most looking forward to, because he sent me some samples which are very similar, I think the same photos that he has up on the website, and it looked great. I was really interested in trying it after seeing these images, because I didn't really know much. It kind of reminds me of like that look from Ektar, but without as much contrast and saturation. It has that fine grain look and sharp look, but a little bit more creamy, a little bit flatter, and more reminiscent of Fuji films like Superior 100 or Industrial 100 or whatever. So yeah, these were some of the samples that I think he sent me. But if you watch the recent video, I shot it in Japan doing night photography in situations like this with long exposures at nighttime, convenience store shot, and some other ones that I showed in this video. But yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to jump back around through different windows here. Yeah, this is another thing I wanted to show you was I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's a website called Shot on What. So if you're into cinematography and film and whatnot, you can find out what a movie, if it was shot on film, or even if it wasn't, I think they just tell you, for example, the camera they used, but you can find out what film stock was used in these cases. So I looked up F64D, and yeah, there's a cool list of movies. I don't recognize all of them, but I've seen some of these, like Harold and Kumar, of course. You've got, yeah, Slumdog Millionaire was shot partially on this film. It doesn't mean they shot the whole movie on it, but yeah, there's a whole other page there. But it seemed to be popular enough to be used in these Hollywood productions and some international productions. But anyway, I think what you guys are probably more interested in is seeing the photos that I took. Because when you look up samples of this film, there's not too many samples. And what you do find, a lot of it is quite expired looking and washed out. Whereas this stock that I got from Mr. Negative was cold stored. So he sourced it from a Melbourne cinematographer who had it in his freezer since 2008 or something like that. And it's been very well stored. And then he's been now packaging it and selling it in these individual canisters. So I think it held up a little bit better compared to what I saw on websites like Lomography, where people were shooting long expired versions and maybe developed it at home where you don't have as much control, and the results looked a little bit different. Another thing I want to note is that in my video, I was calling it Eterna 64D. That was just my mistake. I think I got so used to talking about the other Fuji that I was shooting, Eterna 250T. I was just calling this Eterna 64, and I was mixing it up, but it's just called F64D. I don't know why they didn't call it Eterna. I thought, you know, Eterna would just be the name of their whole cinema line, but it probably didn't work like that. They probably had sub lines as well, unlike, you know, Kodak Vision, I think, was the main Kodak cinema stock. Hey from Chicago. Hey, thanks for joining. Oh, hey man, how are ya? Is it shot at 64? Yeah, so on his website, he actually recommends shooting it at 64. So you can see in the description here, it says it was cold stored and it shoots perfectly at box speed of 64. I think put the meter at 50 when I was using a meter, but yeah, I think it's cold enough to shoot it at 64 if you want, but like most negative films, you can overexpose if you like. I wouldn't recommend underexposing this too much at all, as with any negative film. But yeah, I was calling it Eterna, but don't mind that if you watch that video. Let's go to Lightroom, have a look at some of the samples I have. So these were some of my favorites that I shot, and I just chose a few favorites being from various lighting conditions so you can get an idea of it just at first glance. And at first glance, I kind of sensed this slightly flatter look. It's not too punchy, not too contrasty, kind of what you would expect from a cinema film that has been processed in ECN2. These were done by Mr. Negative before he discontinued in-house processing in ECN2 chemistry, and then scanned on a Fuji Frontier SP500, I believe. So yeah, I'd be interested once I pick up the negatives to see how different the scans look with DSLR scanning. That would be cool to see. But this is one of my favorite shots from the roll, and once you see the whole roll, you'll see that I actually shot quite a few photos of this scene. And I think it gives a good example of the kind of photography that you might do on a low-speed film like this, brighter daylight conditions. So if you see now on the screen, hopefully, yep, the whole roll is up. And what happened is I came across this scene while in Yuzawa in Japan of a swimming pool that was empty. It was winter, so it was full of snow. And this area just looked like the back of maybe a motel or a hotel or whatever. Maybe a school, but I think it was just like a resort or hotel or something like that that looked kind of abandoned, even though it was winter. I don't think it was even operational during summer, but who knows. Yeah, it just looked like a really cool scene, having a swimming pool and the contrast of that with the snow and the mountains. So some summer activity, swimming in a pool, you got these snowy mountains, and the fact that it had like this worn out blue plaster or facade or whatever you'd call it with the crosses there, the depth markers. I don't know why they have those in swimming pools, actually. I think they're lane markers, I guess. But I like the color, and I like all the white, and I think I shot maybe 8 photos at this scene. Even the first one on the roll, I think I tried to shoot that, but obviously that one didn't come out. And one thing I noticed when I got these scans back, you can probably see it in these first 2, is that there's a tiny bit of a red cast. I'm not sure if that'll actually show up on YouTube, but there was a little bit of a red cast that I tried to get rid of in some of the photos that I ended up using or sharing. It's not heavy, but I'll do a before and after right now so you can see. That's before, and that's after. So you should be able to notice just that subtle difference. And maybe I went a bit too far and it looks green in comparison, but you'll see more so in other images that there was a bit of a heavy cast in the in most of the shots. But yeah, generally it's not too contrasty, it's not too saturated, there's good shadow detail. It's sharp. I mean, the grain looks more like your average 100-ish film. It's not super low grain, but part of this could be because it is still a very expired film. Even though it's cold stored, this won't be representative of what the film would have been like if it was shot when it was fresh. Also worth noting that it did go through 1 X-ray. I mean, looking at the shadows, it looks pretty good, but there'll probably be some small difference if it wasn't X-rayed. If you heard my story with X-rays, I managed to avoid about 10 of them, but I had to go through 1 in Saigon in Vietnam. Luckily, it wasn't a CT scanner. Yeah, I'll just flick through a few more photos. Yeah, I mean, for anyone watching live, what does this film look like to you? To me, I think I just get reminded of Industrial 100 or any kind of low-speed Fuji film like that. So the different variations of that being Fuji Color 100 or Superior 100. I remember shooting that. That was a really nice film. But Superior I found more punchy and saturated. And of course, being C41 process, there's going to be a difference there. And it's not so sharp and low grain as to have what people would call a digital look. It still looks like your typical film, but it just has a really nice, flat-ish look, kind of like a movie still. Cinema film has a unique look, and I think Gareth did a great job with the processing and scanning. If there is a bit of a red cast, I think that's just inherent to this film or the Frontier or some other minor thing that could be easily overridden as to your own tastes. This is one of my favorite shots. It's just a little truck sitting in the middle of the snow. kind of buried down to the tires. And then I saw the scan later and saw the little Monster Energy logo. Must have been a delivery truck for them. Hey Jen, how's it going? Look, colors look amazing. Yeah, it's really nice. It does look a bit like Fuji 100. Yeah, I used to really like that film when it was available for a cheap price. I still like it, it's just hard to find. So yeah, then I did the night shots on the tripod, and I think I underexposed a little bit. This is a tricky exposure because I'm trying to get detail inside a brightly lit convenience store and then balance it with the external light. Now with the blue sky, with Blue Hour, you can get nice detail there, but then everything else is already in deep shadow. There's not much, you know, in the way of street lamps, for example. If there were street lights illuminating a little bit of the car park or the road, it would have been a little bit more even. But I think it suits this kind of image. Just that obviously you're going to get more grain and less detail in the shadows, but even then, it's not bad. It's pretty good. And if it hadn't been X-rayed, who knows if it would have been even cleaner in the shadows. And once again, I'm curious how a DSLR scan would come out, because in all of my experience, you will get much more highlight detail on a DSLR scan, and even shadow detail sometimes. But yeah, it's able to retain more range when you do a camera scan. So for example, like you'd have much finer detail inside the store here, and probably higher resolution as well. But yeah, even just these Frontier scans look great. So there was a shot with the mist filter there, and there was a shot without it. So it's very different to that red halation. When I say I don't like halation on films like CineStill, it's because they're often red where you wouldn't actually have red. I'm not opposed to halation in general and that glow. A bit of it looks nice depending on the scene. I just don't like when it's a big red blob where you wouldn't expect red blob. If it was the same color as the highlights, it would be a different story. And sometimes it's a little bit over the top. But with adding something like a diffusion filter, I think it's more subtle. So there it is again. It just has that little bit of a dreamy glow to it. And then without the diffusion filter, that's the default look, which is nice as well. You'll generally get a tiny bit of halation even with an anti-halation layer. And also depending on the lens you're using or the quality of your UV filter, these little things can actually add subtle bits of halation. Alex looks great. Not really a fan of shooting cine film, but has that Fuji cold feel. Yeah, for sure. I love the blues and greens like most people do on Fuji. Darren, looks good. The photo would look pretty crap with red halation. Yeah, especially if it was over the top. I mean, you see here how there's like a little bit of red-ish look because there's a red sign. It kind of looks natural. It's intrinsic. But if this was just covered with that red outline, I think it would take away from the shot. Some people really love it, which is fine. And I know it does look cool on certain shots. So this is when it got darker. So now the ambient light is in relation to the convenience store, much darker. You can see the pronounced effect of that diffusion filter a little bit more. And I just shot a few more as it was getting darker and darker. See here with the taillights, you expect red and it's not a contrasty halation. Anyway, getting a bit too off topic here. This is just an idea of like the film at nighttime on the tripod. These shots here, so I shot this scene and I severely underexposed. I don't know why. Maybe I forgot. I think it was really cold and I wasn't focusing. Maybe I did something wrong. I don't know if I used my handheld meter or used the digital camera, but I was using my Canon digital camera for metering most shots because I would be shooting B-roll and then I would take a shot on the digital and then use that as a meter reading for the film. Maybe I left the ISO on because the ISO doesn't go down to 64 on the Canon. So I would have to compensate from 100. Maybe I forgot to do that and I underexposed these shots. Plus it was all this bright white snow and you know, you got the X-ray factor and whatnot. But yeah, these look like 2 stops underexposed at least. And then this shot, not as underexposed, but still not quite there. And maybe on the digital, I was metering more for the highlights and let the shadows go too dark. With film, you can always go a stop or 2 higher. So I probably just made a mistake there. This would have been a cool shot as well, some of these. Anyway, that's the night long exposures. I was back in Tokyo, did some walkabout shooting as well, which is representative of what a lot of you guys might be shooting if you were to try this film out. And once again, there is a little bit of a warm cast in the, I don't know, in the midtones maybe. So it's not that typical cool look that you might expect if you're thinking of Fujifilm, but all of this depends on the scanner, on so many factors, the operator, you know, everything. And I like this look. I think this looks fine. I haven't edited this, and it's just yeah, representative of what you might get if you get it done on a Frontier in ECN2. But yeah, these evening and blue hour shots I really love. There's such fine detail, low grain, and when I shot it with my Sonar 50, that was a really nice combo. I think that's what I was using here, or maybe I was using the Thypok 35mm 1.4. It was handheld, so it's not perfectly still. I probably leaned on a wall or put it up against a little pole or something like that. So it's not perfectly still, but I think it works. Same thing here. I remember putting the camera up on this little parking thingy. Yeah, same deal here, because it's way too dark to be shooting 64 film. Handheld, I was putting the camera down on any surface I could find, or maybe just leaning it on, you know, little bits like that, and then semi hand holding and doing like a 1 second exposure or half second. You can kind of guesstimate around that. Yeah, great film though. I highly recommend giving it a try if you do like this kind of low speed film and just trying something different. It's a little bit on the pricier side, but most of these rare expired stocks are. And I think if you took better shots than I did and you were a bit more intentional, you could probably get something really good and maybe give it a little bit more exposure. Maybe shoot it at 50. Depending, if it's nighttime, I think you need to give a little bit more for reciprocity and for shadow detail. But it held the highlights really well. And beautiful colors, just whether it was day or night. I'll flick through a few more of these night shots and then we have some more daytime ones. So here, daylight shot, you can see it's quite flat. So you could add the contrast in. Having this flat image gives you the versatility to then edit to your liking. You could add a whole bunch of contrast and saturation if you want, while retaining that same basic sharpness, detail, and color palette. Here, this was quite a high contrast daylight scene. You can see it's kind of late morning or something like that, but you know, it's full blue sky, sun's out, and although it's contrasty, it's not that look that you'd probably call crunchy, where it just looks really bad in the shadows. They're still nice shadows, even though they're hard shadows. You know, I've zoomed 100% here. It holds up quite well. This one I really like. I love the colors of this apartment entrance. The way the blue contrasts with this, I don't know, salmon color, I guess, and the old bike, the washing machine out the front. There's just so much unique character on the streets of Japan that most people probably find boring, but I was really interested in scenes like this. I like the daylight colors, yeah. Did you also shoot a Turner 250T, 250D, or 400T? Now sold. Are they sold out? Oh man, that was quick. I think he has more. He probably just has to produce the rolls, because he's, like I mentioned, rolling them down, cutting them down from the cinema reels. And that takes a lot of effort and time. I did the 250T. I didn't shoot the other two. I wouldn't mind trying the other two. I saw his samples and they look good. But yeah, almost at the end of the roll here. This was a flea market, which I mentioned in that video. Oh, hey, the man himself, he's here. I have more of everything, so there you go. There's more of everything in stock. If it showed it sold out on the website, maybe that was temporary. But yeah, I really want to try. I love tungsten film in general, so there's just something about it. There's just a unique look about tungsten film. This one wasn't tungsten, but I love the 250T, and I would shoot that again. I'll probably shoot it at like 100 this time. I think I shot that roll about 125 to 160. I was never too accurate with metering, but yeah, it could handle way more light. Cinema film is extremely versatile. yeah, there was these cool dudes at the flea market who I asked for a portrait. Just, you know, they had this little stall, great outfits on. A lot of the Japanese clothing stores and sellers and people are just into this old school Americana kind of look. And I think it's awesome. So I got to put this. This was the last shot on the roll. I messed it up, and plus it was burnt anyway, because remember, this film is bulk loaded, so there's going to be a little bit where it's attached to the end of the roll, where you won't necessarily get that last shot. Cool. So, what do you think of Fuji F64D? Would you try it? I would shoot it again. I'll probably be really intentional with my shots. I don't know if it's the best film to do general walkabout stuff, unless maybe it's quite sunny and bright wherever you intend to shoot. But yeah, if you want more info, check out Mr. Negative. He's here in the live chat, but he's always helpful whenever I have messages with him. He sent me heaps of samples and yeah, really cool range of films that I think. So the comment I'm just seeing here, wow, that's pricey, you got to pay to play. It's a really rare film. You can always shoot Kodak Vision 500T and 250D and all that sort of stuff, and he does, you can see, have these on the website for like half the price if it's the Kodak stock that is still made. These Eterna films and the F64D, you can't really find these cold stored very easily. So if you want, you know, 500T, I've got it up here on the website. That's $12 US. I don't know. I think I put it on US dollars by accident, or maybe I was doing that for the sake of the video. But yeah, you can get cinema films for a much lower price. But if you're wanting to shoot something rare and super expired but cold stored like F64D, I think it's you know, to be expected that you're going to have to pay more. And with a low speed film like this, I think it's good to be really intentional with your shots, or use it as just like a special treat, not your daily driver kind of film that you shoot for everything. But I think if you're really keen on trying something different, this is worth it. I would shoot it again. I would probably next want to shoot more of the tungsten stuff, or this one again, the 250. I love that. That was one of my favorites. But yeah, it's all up there. It's on Mr. Negative if you do want to try it. Let me know what you think. If you've tried it and you're watching this video later on, leave a comment or share some shots on Instagram and tag the Pushing Film account. I'd be keen to see more people use some of these Eterna films. And I don't think they're going to be around for much longer, given the fact that you can't get more of it. Unlike 500T from Kodak, you can just get more of it. We're living in a pretty cool time to have all these options still. Who knows if in a year it's going to be completely gone, finding this stuff this easily. But yeah, that was everything I wanted to share about the film. Let me know if you have questions, by the way. So I'll probably get to the last part of the stream now, where I just have a bit of a catch up, and if you want to ask any questions and whatnot. Read some comments. Just spacing out the 400T as I have less and would like to give everyone an opportunity to grab some over the next few months. Yeah, like the thing is, I think a lot of people don't consider is that the work involved in taking these cinema reels, keeping them cold stored for one, and then defrosting them, putting them in a large 400-foot loader to then load them down into a smaller reel sometimes, or to have a dedicated machine like the Reflex one or whatever to then load them into little canisters. This is work that can take hours and hours. So you have to take that into consideration as well as the, you know, the packaging and everything else. And then I can't imagine it being that much cheaper, to be honest, unless it's super expired. Then, you know, you don't have much of a guarantee. $25 roll is pretty standard. Yeah, 25 Australian. I know that because I had it on the US dollars, that might confuse some people. So I don't know what that is in Australian dollars. I can change the website back. But yeah, I'm not saying it's cheap. I don't think he's trying to imply that it's a cheap film. This is a special film, and I think it's really cool if you want to try a special film. Australian dollars. I'll change it back in a moment. Compared to Fuji Natura that is $100 a roll, I have tried to make something that is rare and accessible as possible. Yeah, there you go. I agree with that. If it was $10 a roll, I would have bought it all by now. And speaking of Natura, I can't believe how expensive that's going for now. It's a great film. I love Natura. I used to buy it in 3-packs and it was really cheap. It was, I don't know, like the 3-pack was $30 or something at the store that I used to work at. I wish I bought more, but I didn't. And even then, like it would come in little drips. The stock wasn't always easy to find. I have 1 roll left. It's been in the fridge for ages, so I don't know if it's like gonna hold up quite as well, but yeah, I'm trying to think of what to do with it. But yeah, that film has great colors. I love it. Love the packaging. Yeah, that's what I said. So when I met Gareth and he showed me the boxes, I thought, these are really cool. Who did the graphic design? I think did you say you did it yourself or someone you know, or like it was internally designed? And it's really cool with the color scheme. He commented that because there's another one or 2 colors, and they kind of look like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because of the green and then the different colored stripes, like the bandanas they wear. Hi Hashem, it's mad, bro. Nice. Yeah, my favorite is the logo, the little character. I'll let it focus for a bit. Yeah, I don't know, it's a bit slow focusing, but you can see it on the website. Alex S, I got a roll from Mr. Negative, purchased a few weeks ago. Yeah, cool. We'll try it when I visit home in September. Romania, so cool, that's cool. One of my best friends growing up was from Romania. And back when we used to hang out more around high school and university days, now we're in different cities. I used to think it would be cool to go there, to visit somewhere like Romania, because not many people think to visit somewhere like that. Did it myself with a friend. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love all the designs. They're really good. But anyway, what's everyone been up to? You still shooting as much film as you were, let's say, a year ago? I think I was talking about this in an old live stream, how in 2023, I'd shot like, I don't know, 20, 30 rolls, and it was the least film I'd shot in 10 years or whatever since I got back into film. But this year, having had this holiday, I've already shot way more than last year. So I think it's a bit seasonal. It really depends. But because it is getting more expensive, I don't shoot as much as I did 5 years ago or before, I don't know, before 3-ish years ago, because there was that sharp continuous rise in prices. And it's just, and I used to work in a camera store and get really cheap film here and there, or just being in that circle and buy expired film from workmates or friends, and eventually all of that dries up. So even secondhand film isn't as cheap and readily available. So yeah, it's hard to justify shooting film as much as 5 years ago. Pretty sure he does ship to the US, because I've seen US YouTubers talk about some of the Mr. Negative films, and I think it's worldwide shipping. And the cool thing is it's a flat rate, so it'd be good to buy more than 1 roll. If you're overseas, if you're only buying 1 roll, probably doesn't make much sense unless you're really keen or you're buying something else. But yeah, I would wait, get a whole bunch of them, take advantage of the flat rate shipping, and then it might work out in your favor, because the US dollar is stronger than the Australian dollar. Scanning an expired Orwo NP22. That's a difficult name to say. Orwo. Orwo sounds easier to say, like with that kind of rolling R. And watching a live stream. Nice. What are you scanning on? Haven't shot any in over a year. Wow. Yeah, you've been shooting. Did you get an X100 or something? Can't remember now. Worldwide $15 USD. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, so $15 US dollars. $15 US. I would buy like 5 rolls at least to make it worthwhile if you're in the US. So maybe wait until you want 5 rolls or so. Solid deal. Thanks for the info. In reference to Gareth. Yep, cool. You did get an X100. Still scanning on Epson V850. Yeah, I used to have a V800 and I sold it. Once I got into camera scanning, it's just way better for 35mm. If you're scanning a lot of 120, I find the V800 was good, but with 35, it was just a bit of a pain in terms of how slow it was and just the detail. It's still good, and if you have a good workflow, it's still like, I'm not saying get rid of it and get into camera scanning now, because camera scanning isn't suitable for everyone. I think you need to ideally have some of the equipment already, and then, you know, the willpower to go through the little intricacies of getting it right, because it's not as straightforward. But the difference in results for me was night and day. All right, I think that sums up everything I wanted to go over in this video. If you have any last minute questions or comments, leave them in the live chat. Otherwise, just leave them in the comments, for the actual normal comments section, and I can check back on it later. Just wishing my cool scan never dies. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, a little bit better than flatbed. But yeah, what's coming up next on the channel? I'm working on, excuse me, another one of the videos that I shot while overseas. This one's going to be from Vietnam again. I know I'm jumping back and forth between countries, but it was kind of because of having to get film back at different stages from different countries, and I couldn't just not produce videos. I had to try and put stuff out, so it just made it easier to edit whatever video I could, put that out, and jump back around, and it doesn't really need to be chronological as far as I'm concerned. But the next one is from the far north Vietnam. So I had a video from Saigon, then I had one from up in Hanoi, and then the next part of the trip was when we did this loop, the Ha Giang loop, really close to the border of China. And that's going to be probably the longest video from Vietnam, because that's where we spent the most time. We did the motorbike tour, and it was really scenic, lots of different segments within that, and we stayed in a different place every night for a few nights. And then we were up in Sapa for a little bit, and I shot some street photography there. So I'm going to put that all into one video, and I'm really looking forward to that one. And then I've got various other stuff coming from Bangladesh, for example, and then other just regular videos that aren't related to that holiday. One thing I got recently was the new flash from Reflex Lab. Not the tiny one, but the regular small size one. I do want to really try that tiny one, but I think they're sold out. But yeah, let me know if there's any content you'd like to see, whether it relates to gear, film, shooting, anything like that. I'm always open to your suggestions. Thanks for joining this one. I hope you have a good Sunday. I'm hoping for the weather to clear up, because it was meant to be really nice. Yesterday was quite nice, but even then it got gloomy. And I feel like going out and shooting and just getting outside, because I haven't done that in a while. But we'll see how it goes. You're going there this year? Nice, man. You're going to enjoy it. High-end flatbed scanners work well. Yeah, I would consider the V850 the highest end flatbed. Props take my digital. Yeah, can't go wrong. The flash I got was, yeah, it's 2 AAA batteries. So it's kind of like just a little bit bigger than a film box. It's a bit wider than that. And it uses AAA batteries. I've tested it on a few shots, but I need to go out and use it properly. I love the form factor though. It's pretty good so far. Anyway, thanks for joining, everyone. Like I said, enjoy the rest of your day. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, and I'll catch you on the next